Repercussion. I remember the car crash that took my grandmother's life, like it was yesterday. And when I say I remember, I mean vividly, because I was in the passenger seat. We hit an oncoming vehicle, trying to overtake on a blind bend. My grandmother seemed to register the car and sighed at the inevitable. Everything happened in slow motion. The sound of metal crushing, air whooshing past where it shouldn't. The man who was trying to overtake hit the driver's side of my car and ended up hitting a tree and burning to death after impact. It felt like we were spinning for ages. I had looked over at my grandmother, hunched over, a look of pure terror mirroring my own. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was told the woman in the third car avoided the crash completely and pulled up onto the grassy bank on the other side of the road from where the car was burning to call the police. My mother was a wreck for weeks after, ranting at me from the minute I opened my eyes in the hospital bed. How could you let her drive, Anne? It was your car, your responsibility. The doctor, with his blue scrubs and shaved head, said it was a miracle. I only had a fractured wrist and concussion, considering my grandmother had split her head open, lost her arm with the car door, and had a heart attack as she bled out. I knew my mother's rage was mostly because I was unconscious for the last few moments of her mother's life, where she died alone and in pain. My father tried to reassure me that it wasn't my fault, but I knew it was. I knew she would still be here if I had driven. The morning of the crash, she had walked the mile or so. It was from her house to ours, hoping we could go shopping together, as she did almost every Saturday since I got my license. Because I idolized her, when she asked to drive us, I would always let her, every time. I wasn't allowed to visit her, lying in rest in the chapel. It will upset the aunts and uncles too much, was the excuse my mother used. She was the heart and soul of the family, you understand. But I didn't. She was my grandmother. She was part of me too. They should have let me say goodbye. A week after the funeral, the dreams started. She always turned up at the front door, asking if I wanted to go shopping with her, much like she did the morning of the crash. Those first few weeks, I always woke up not long after I saw her standing there, the terror jolting me out of the dream. I rarely dreamt before the crash. Sleep then had been beautiful blackness. I prayed for a dreamless sleep to return, growing weary of the overactive repetition of my sleeping mind. As time went on and winter came around, the dreams uncontrollably got longer. I would agree to drive her, and as I walked out the front door in my dream, she would start having a heart attack, falling to the ground in a pile of blood that rose from the grassy lawn. When I told my father about this, fearful of letting my mother know, he put it down to the medication I was on. He took me back to the doctors, who prescribed me something else to try. The dreams didn't stop, but they didn't get worse either. I tried to return to normal, going to volleyball practice and on date nights with my boyfriend, Phil. It worked for a little while, nearly 2 months after the crash. I opened my curtains one morning and looked down at the lawn, as I had done every morning of my life, to see someone standing at the end of the drive, about 100 yards away. I didn't pay much attention to them the first day, or second. On the third day, the person moved a bit closer to the house, as if demanding to be seen. My grandmother looked up at me with a blank expression. I shut the curtains, trying to ignore the apparition. I was convinced death was coming to get me, so I stopped sleeping, afraid I wouldn't wake up. The lack of sleep meant grandmother was around more, stalking me from a closer proximity, standing behind me in the mirror as I washed my face in the morning, sitting in the back of the car when my mother took me to school, walking past me in the hallways at school. I was grateful she remained silent, and her right arm was still intact. She had given me a cross for my 10th birthday, and I dug it out of my closet and started wearing it constantly, hoping it would ward off her spirit, or at least trick my brain into warding her off. But the cross did nothing. I Googled ways to relax. It told me to take a bath and eat healthier food. I was barely eating, so I took a bath. Everything was okay, until the bath water turned bright red, like fresh blood. And I passed out from a mixture of fear and lack of food. My mother found me hours later, prune-like and shivering in the water. "Can't you see it?" I said through chattering teeth. She looked over my body as if checking for injury. "See what? What did you do?" I spoke slowly, my voice raspy. "The bath is filled with blood." My mother flinched, as though I had slapped her, then pulled the plug out and let the bath drain. Then she wrapped me in 3 towels and bundled me downstairs to sit in front of the fire, where I watched my grandmother's face dance behind the flames. One Saturday, at the height of my newfound insanity, as Phil was cooking us dinner in his family home, he called me by her name, Hazel. I got a head rush from the shock, and I closed my eyes for a few seconds while I waited for it to pass. When I opened my eyes again, my grandmother appeared in front of me, where I stood by the stove, smiling at me for the first time since she had appeared posthumously. I started screaming. Weeks of no sleep, being haunted by your dead grandmother, will eventually make you lose your mind. Phil couldn't calm me down and ended up calling my parents to come and get me. No one else could see her standing there smiling, her mouth twisted more to the right than I remembered. Her eyes followed me wherever I went in the room, but she remained in place. "Maybe we need to take her to see a specialist," I heard my mother say to my father as I sobbed in the back seat of the car. "She already has a doctor. There's something not right about her. Not anymore. She needs to see a psychiatrist or something." But the specialist who prescribed me even more pills, told me repeatedly that at 17, I wasn't seeing my dead grandmother. You just have clinical exhaustion. You'll be fine. That night, I took the new pills I had been given to put me to sleep, only to be woken up by the feeling of hands around my neck, crushing my windpipe. I opened my eyes to see my grandmother standing over me as I lay in bed, unable to move. "What a shame," my grandmother hissed, her voice deep and not at all the sweet, sing-song voice she had in life. I needed her to stop haunting me. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I fought to get the words out. "I would do anything to trade places with you. Anything." Her mouth pulled up slowly on the right side. "Anything?" I was gasping in the dark. No, not gasping. Choking. Choking on something in my throat. A snake crawled into my mouth and was snaking its way to my stomach. I could feel my lips around its slimy body. "She's awake," I heard my mother say. Couldn't she see I was being suffocated? I peeled back my dry eyelids as the snake started to move, feeling a lot like this was the end. Especially when I was met with blinding light, blinking until the room came into focus. To first see the doctor with his shaved head, who was pulling a tube out of my mouth. Then I noticed my mother to the right of me, standing up next to the bed. Father sat beside her. Furthest away from me was my grandmother, standing in the doorway, her lips taut in a wry smile. I was going to be sick. "It's okay, Anne. It's okay," my mother began, stroking my hair as soon as the doctor was finished. "You were in an accident, but you're okay." This wasn't happening. Or rather, this had already happened, hadn't it? I went to wipe my tears away with my right hand, but for some reason, I couldn't move it. Grandmother still stood in the doorway, now expressionless. I tried to see what was trapping my right arm, but I couldn't see anything for the sheet covering me. "You were in a car crash, darling. But my mother couldn't continue, breaking into sobs. I tried to say, "What?" but it came out all muffled and wrong. My tongue, somehow, too big for my mouth. My father was shaking his head. "You were in a car crash, Anne," grandmother said. Her voice that had evaded me for weeks was frail and dry. "The impact tore your right arm off." No, this wasn't happening. I was shaking my head frantically. The doctor was concerned with my heart rate and hyperventilation, injecting me with something that made the world go fuzzy. Grandmother moved closer to me in my haze, still not smiling. She seemed to be talking to my parents about something, but I couldn't hear them. The drugs were too powerful. Reality eventually slipped away, and I fell into a dreamless sleep for once. When I woke up, I opened my eyes to my dimly lit bedroom at home, looking exactly as it had on the morning of the crash. My heart was pounding in my chest. I kept telling myself it was a dream. It was all just a dream. The crash, the hospital, everything, but I was too scared to move, for fear I discovered my right arm was missing. There's not a ghost in my house. Sally, are you running from me, Sally? I'm not running, Jessica. You tried to leave before I could catch you. I'm busy, Jessica. I work, meaning I don't work. Let's say you don't do 9 to 5. Oh, I work, Sally. I work plenty. I work around the clock working. If you call what you do work. So that's another rumor you've been spreading about me? I'm a bum now? I don't spread rumors, Jessica. My name is Jessie, and you know it, since you throw it around a lot. You're paranoid. Oh, really? I'm paranoid? That's why the whole congregation just snickered at me? I have no idea what you're talking about. And the preacher just called me imaginative. No idea why. No idea, huh? You haven't shared my new insurance claims around lately. I don't have time for your nonsense. Nonsense? You're calling the House of Horrors you sold me nonsense? We don't entertain ghost stories, Jessica. No, you just entertained stealing my money and handing me a haunted house. Honestly, Jessica, you have a wild imagination. It's just an old house. Can you try to tone it down? Oh, I'm the liar now? You didn't disclose anything. You sold me a paranormal vortex. Jessica, I sold you a house. I didn't sell you a haunted house. Older homes are a little noisy. A little noise? The lights flicker on and off, like a damn hallway disco. Battering rams shake the walls. Something cold keeps stalking me from the laundry room to the upstairs. And then there's the whispers in the landing mirror. And I'm supposed to sleep with the corner shadows slithering past. Jessica, church parking lots are not the time or place for your ghost stories. Your wiring is older, however. The house is perfectly fine and passed our inspection. Your insurance policy will not be covering your broken dish claims or any other fabrications. You mean my floating dishes claims before they rain and smash, plus the floating beds claims, and the floating curtains, and the floating ME? I don't know what you're trying to prove, but it's not working. You're making a scene here for nothing. Please, seek help. Oh yeah, it's all in my head, Sally. Is that the game we're playing? The entire town knew about. This is a county, not a town, Jessica. Fine. Sally. It's a hamlet, village, royal ripoff capital, in the middle of dumb duck nowhere. 'Cause menial technicalities matter more than the fact that you sold me a freaking haunted house. Even the locksmith threw the keys and ran. It seems you enjoy stirring up drama, Jessica. We will resume this conversation when you are calm. I've got a damn good reason to be dramatic. Drama is trying to live in that place without getting dragged into the walls myself. I wake up to doors slamming. I try to go to bed and the roof howls. Look at me, Sally. Not at this crowd. I don't know what you expect from me. It's not my problem. It's yours. No, you sold me a nightmare, and now I'm making it your problem. The whole damn place is cursed, And now I've got a town full of people looking at me like I'm some damn lunatic. I want my money back. I'm not giving you any money, Jessica. You signed the papers. You knew what you were getting. Yeah, I signed the papers, but you didn't tell me the house bled. I'm swimming in a demon ditch, and you knew it, didn't you? That's enough. I didn't do anything wrong. You're the one who... You act like you don't do anything wrong. Instead, you've been telling people I'm crazy. You've made everyone think I've lost my mind. But I'm gonna make sure everyone knows the truth. I don't know what you want me to do, Jessica. The house is yours. If it's that big a deal, you can move. I have to go. We're all aware you have your jolly holiday to pack for, but you're going to handle this first. My holidays are well earned, Jessica. Unlike some... You're saying that I haven't earned a holiday? I'm saying you need to take a step back. I would love to step back, Sally. I would love to just go home and enjoy a nice Sunday brunch without my forks levitating above my head. It's not in my head, Sally. It's above my head. And I have loads of video proof online. It all went viral. None of that has been proven to be real. Proven? You want me to prove it? How about you come over for a meal? You can even spend the night. The guest room has floating lamps and screaming furniture that likes to rearrange itself. I'm sorry you feel this way, Jessica, but your home purchase and insurance policy can't help you with your haunting. My haunting. When are we going to acknowledge the literal hell you've put me through? The place is cursed, and you sold it to me with a smile on your face. And now I'm stuck in this ghost infestation, and you ruined my rep to boot. No one is answering my ads. Maybe no one needs your services here, Jessica. Will that be before or after the rumors you spewed? 'Cause they think I'm all crazy, right? 'Cause you didn't do anything wrong, right? I did not. I went out of my way to help you in an emergency. You were an opportunist. We all helped you, Jessica. Helped me how? Don't smirk at me. You ripped me off. I want my money back so I can move to a normal home with visitors that don't drop through ceilings. If you want people to visit you, Jessica, perhaps you should share more in community spirit rather than silly stories. I've had plenty of guests, Sally. Like rocks through my window, kids screaming, and slow cars passing. Not to mention the 24/7 live-in spook party you sold. And what about all the tents on your front lawn? The Ghost Hunters Unanimous Team? They're here for the one-night challenge. Do you have a permit for those theatrics? Excuse me? You didn't inform us that you were converting the property to a theater. We may have to cancel your insurance. You bloody snake! Unlike your stories, Jessica, your contract states you must inform us first if you run a business from the premises. And unlike your business slogans, I will be certain to share my bad experience with your real estate and insurance firm to my new 57K ghost followers. And I will sue you for defamation. And I'll sue you back. What defamation, Jessica? You shared my personal claims to half of the town congregation and our preacher. I believe we all count as witnesses to your ruining of my reputation. Yeah, let's go to court. No, don't. Jesse, we can review your claim on the 17th, when I return. No, Sally. We can review all my claims before you leave for your palm trees on Tuesday. I'm sure it can wait. It's waited long enough. And, Sally, we may have additional info to review. And what might that be? Jesse? I am considering turning my ghost house into a business. We need to ensure the... Ouch! Do you always slam your Buick doors like that? A living mirage. Life, as funny as it sounds, flows in a circle. And I, personally, never liked circles. I'm more of an octagon kind of person. Sally snorts at her own thoughts, but groans when the noise is muffled by the hand that is covering the lower part of her face. It smells of sewerage, grimy, disgusting, and somewhat musty. Familiar, heart-wrenching, stomach-churning, brain-rotting, but familiar. Maybe a little too familiar. His movements are sluggish, as usual. His joints crack with every step, and Sally fears he might die on the spot. Although she is certain nobody would miss good old Donovan Peters if he were to suddenly disappear. They slowly creep into the familiar room, announcing their arrival with every creak of rotten wooden floor. Sally's mind wistfully returns to her life before this. Was there even one? Her memory falters. Why can't I remember? Her eyes scan the room frantically, sweeping over the unmade bed, splintered floor, and boarded-up window. Her home. Her cell. Her hands strain against the rope, shaking from the terror of having returned to this fearful place. NPA. Her protest is muffled, much like her snort from earlier. No. This will not do. His voice is croaky and barely clear. If she had not known his actual age, she might have thought him to be on the verge of expiration. His chest presses against the back of her head as he forces her inside. His shove is aggressive, and when she falls to the floor, his laughter ricochets off the walls. She barely manages to get to her knees when the door is slammed, locked and barred. Donovan's sinister laughter continues to echo as the sound of his footsteps retreats. Sally shakes her head, forcing tears back into her eyes. She won't. No, she refuses to lose any more of them for that monster. I told you, it won't work. A doe-eyed beauty emerges from the darkest corner of the room. Sally's temper flares, and she springs to her feet, charging at the beauty. It was you, wasn't it? Her voice is cold enough to slice through any warmth in the room, and the beauty lowers her eyes. Sally tugs on the rope around her wrists until it unties, and then uses it to press down onto the other girl's neck. Layla Angelou can rot for all I care. The voice in her head is loud, and she hisses. The girl claws at the rope around her throat and falls back against the wall. Splinters pierce her skin, but she refuses to make a sound. It's always you. Why? Sally's eyebrows are pulled together furiously, and her sharp blue eyes have turned into ice. Don't lie to me. Sally's outburst receives no reply, and her arms finally slump enough for the girl to breathe. But she does not remove the rope. A sob racks through her chest. I thought that this time, at least this once, you'd let me go. Go where? The girl rasps, rubbing her throat. Her luscious black hair cascades down her back and shoulders, perfectly framing her figure. Her green eyes hold a certain complicated depth, and her plump pink lips are pulled into a miserable pout. Sally pulls away completely. Somewhere, nowhere, anywhere but here. She turns her back on the girl and throws the rope aside, massaging her bruised wrists. We can make this work, Sally. I promise. If you just try, you'll see. Please, why can't you just stay with me? Sally ignores her. This is a conversation they've had before, a fruitless one. Once she's soothed the sting on her wrists, she turns around to face the girl again. Her eyes trail down to her throat, and her stomach churns at the fresh burn marks. She knew her throat was already sensitive. She can admit when she was out of line. I'm sorry, Layla. Her head nods in the direction of the girl's neck, but the girl waves it away quickly. Not a problem at all. Happens to us all. They remain in silence for a good 5 minutes before Layla walks towards the bed and starts to fix the bedding. She hums a soft tune as she works, sounding rather cheerful. Sally hates it. How can she be so content? In a situation such as this, I kept some dinner for you. Layla pulls a corroded metal bowl from below the bed and nudges it towards Sally, who reluctantly nears to accept it. The half-eaten apple in the bowl is bruised and looks less than appetizing, but she sends Layla a grateful smile and devours it. I'll try again someday. You know that, right? Something scratches at the window, scaring the two. Layla nearly trips over her own feet as she rushes to hide behind Sally's figure. Not that Sally has any height advantage over her. Sally pats Layla's hand on her shoulder, comfortingly, before removing it and placing the bowl on the ground. She clamps the apple core in her hand and crouches closer to the window. Something about this feels too familiar, and Sally falters in her steps. Something about the entire night feels way too familiar. Yes, she's been in this predicament for quite some time, but the déjà vu she's experienced tonight has been one too many for her to just ignore it. The boards used to cover the window start to blur, pixelate. Sally glances over her shoulder at Layla to confirm if she's just imagining things. But the sheer confusion on Layla's face says it all. Everything is real. Sally stops in front of the window and gasps when she sees the image within the pixelated particles. A scene, much like the one she's just experienced with Donovan, is mirrored in front of her. A mirage? That's not possible. She reaches forward, holding her breath as her fingertips breach the surface of the image before her. Sally turns around to face Layla, but her breathing stops completely when Layla's figure has disappeared. Her eyes scan the room frantically, but all evidence of Layla having been there has disappeared. Layla! She tries to call, but her voice gets stuck in her throat. Sally turns towards the mirage again and falls backwards when her eyes connect with those of Layla. Only this time, Layla's eyes are a forest green, with a small red fire burning inside her pupils. Pain creeps through her body as her back makes contact with the floor. Layla opens her mouth, and what comes out is a cruel cackle. Inside the mirage, Sally can see another version of herself being shoved into the room and then having a fight with Layla. But the difference is that there are two versions of Layla. The one is pressed against the wall by the other Sally, and the other one is standing to the side and laughing hysterically, like she is watching a form of comedy. Oh, Sally dear. The cackling Layla turns to face Sally through the mirage, and the pixelated particles of the window starts to shimmer. Sally crawls backwards when Layla's hand pierces the surface, and pale, bony fingers clamp around the frame of the window. I remember this. Her voice is muffled by uncertainty, but she manages to push herself up from the floor. I remember all of this. She says this to herself as confirmation. Her eyes dart around the room, and then back at where Layla is still dragging herself through the pixels. She never understood her unsanctioned hate towards Layla. But suddenly, it all makes sense. Every memory stabs at her mind, and for once, she understands what is happening. She's always hated Layla because she knew exactly what she was. That's why Layla does this. Sally runs towards the bed and collects the rope from the ground in the process. I will escape! She ties the rope around one of the springs at the bottom of the bed and bites into her hand, hard enough to draw blood. Tears spill from her eyes as she smears her blood all over the rope, and then uses her index finger to write 3 simple words on the bottom of the mattress. You must escape. She stares at the words, her stomach churning from another feeling of déjà vu. I've done this before? She grits her teeth painfully before reaching up to add something else. You must escape, Layla. Sally crawls out from under the bed and eyes Layla's half-emerged figure fearfully. Without a second longer to lose, she runs to the door and starts banging frantically. With every second she's banging, Layla crawls further out of the pixelated window, laughing comically at Sally's terror. What's all the ruckus about? Donovan barges into the room, but Sally ducks underneath his arms and runs with her every fiber to reach the front door. The stairs complain under her weight as she trips down them, but she doesn't stop. "Oh, Sally." Layla's voice sing-songs from behind her, and she shudders. Sally bumps against torn furniture and leaps over newspapers strewn all over the floor, but her eyes stay focused on the black, bolted front door. Her hands shake as she jiggles the locks around, but they refuse to budge. "Come on, Sally. I just want to play." "That's right. We just want to play." Donovan's voice has turned more laryngeal, and Sally's skin crawls. "Please, no." She ruffles the old newspapers on the table beside the door, searching for the keys. But her movement stills when she notices an odd peculiarity in all of the newspapers. Although they are of different dates and already discolored, they have one thing in common: a picture of her. Although they have been edited and computer-generated to show her at different ages, they are all her. Her head spins, and bile pushes up her throat. Sally backs away from the table until her back bumps against a kitchen counter. A voice inside of her yells at her to run, but her feet stay plastered to the ground. Layla's comical laughter has turned into sinister screams, and Sally can finally hear Donovan's heavy footfalls approaching the staircase. She shakes her head to clear her thoughts and almost releases a sigh of relief when she notices a pair of rusty keys peeking out from below a chipped teacup. Sally grabs the keys and rushes to the door, willing her trembling hands to still and complete the task. One lock clicks open, then another, and finally, the last one. Sally nearly sags to the floor in relief, but manages to keep herself poised enough to pull the door open. She runs out of the door, down the 2 stone steps, and onto the asphalt ground. She manages to run all the way to a broken-down truck when Donovan's voice booms in the form of a roar. She ducks behind the truck and presses her back securely against it. Her chest rises and falls erratically, and she makes sure to slow her breathing as to not make a sound. She lowers herself to the ground and pulls her knees to her chest, begging for a door of any of the surrounding houses to open and for someone to come to her rescue, but no one does. Ever. The silence that follows Donovan's roar is deafening. Layla has also stopped cackling, and not even birds can be heard. This is the first time Sally scans the houses around them, only to notice the degraded state every one of the houses are in. They are old, and decrepit. There is no possibility that anyone can live in these houses. Her heart stutters, and her entire body goes cold. She turns her gaze towards the side mirror of the truck and finds a terrified version of herself staring back. Her eyes widen at the words scrawled onto the mirror in old, dried blood. Not safe. Follow arrows. Her lips part, but no oxygen enters. She manages to push herself to her feet, albeit shakily, and glances around the truck. Donovan is standing in the doorway, looking around calmly. Behind him, the low hum of Layla's singing fills the air. Run, little mouse. Run, little mouse. Let's all have some fun. Goosebumps spread across the entirety of Sally's body, and she hisses before pushing against the surface of the truck and taking off in the direction of the first arrow that's drawn beside the writing on the mirror. Layla's laughter fills the air, but Sally ignores her as she pushes her legs and pumps her arms harder, harder. Her eyes scan the surrounding area as she runs, looking for any sign of an arrow. The arrows lead her all the way to an abandoned parking lot of a large business. Her eyes fleet around frantically, but she sees no more arrows. With Layla's humming from behind as her motivation, she runs into the building and ducks below the entrance gates. But when she stops in front of the doors of the elevator, her entire body freezes. From the surface of the elevator door, albeit blurry due to the deterioration, she can see two glowing orbs smiling back at her. Those orbs are illuminated by a red fire burning from the middle of the black pupils. Poor little mouse. Layla leans over Sally's shoulder and skims her cold fingers across her cheek. It's so easy to lay a trap for a mouse who loves its cheese. She laughs hysterically and leans onto Sally for support. This is not the end. Sally bites back, curling her hands into fists. Layla stares at her through the reflection of the elevator door before laughing comically. You're right, dear. This, she waves her hand around as if showcasing her to an audience, is simply the beginning. And we, she points a finger at Sally and then back at herself. We are going to have a lot more fun together. Sally rips herself away from Layla and spins around. But Layla tuts, snaps her fingers, and then slaps her palm against Sally's forehead in one swift movement. There's no rush, dear. With her words, Sally's world starts to spin, and her eyes flicker before she is consumed by darkness. And the next thing she sees is the familiar, cold, creaking hallway of Donovan's apartment. He forces her down the hall with his chest pressed against the back of her head and his hand clamped securely around the lower half of her face. Life, as funny as it sounds, flows in a circle. And I, personally, never liked circles. I'm more of an octagon kind of person. Sally snorts at her own thoughts, but groans when the noise is muffled by the hand that is covering the lower part of her face. It smells of sewerage, grimy, disgusting, and somewhat musty. Familiar, heart-wrenching, stomach-churning, brain-rotting, but familiar. But for the first time, it seems just a little too familiar in the pastor's care. This story contains descriptions of violence. Franklin, Wyatt, had a voice that made people lean in, a voice you'd trust to guide you through a storm. In the sleepy town of Crosshaven, sometime in the mid-1980s, Franklin was more than a pastor. He was a caretaker for the foster kids no one else could handle, and a fixture at every town potluck. People saw Franklin as a quiet man with an unshakable sense of purpose. No one would have guessed he was running from a past darker than any storm cloud. Years ago, Franklin had done the unthinkable. He'd taken the lives of his wife, Elise, and his teenage daughter, Margaret. They weren't cruel women, but they were fierce. Too fierce for Franklin's tightly wound idea of what a household should be. Elise never backed down from an argument, and Margaret's quick wit was as sharp as a knife. To Franklin, their defiance wasn't just a challenge. It was a sign of something broken that needed fixing. One thunderous night, in the heat of a feverish prayer, he believed he'd heard God's voice telling him how to save them. And so he acted, not out of rage, but a misguided conviction that he was doing right by them. Afterward, Franklin vanished. Back then, it was easier to slip through the cracks. No internet to trace your steps, no databases to cross-check your lies. Franklin reinvented himself as a pastor in Crosshaven. His calm demeanor and willingness to take in troubled teens earned him a reputation as a saint. He never let on that his saintly acts were fueled by guilt so heavy it made his hands shake when he prayed alone at night. On a brisk October morning, Naomi arrived at Franklin's foster home. She was 17, with wild brown hair barely contained in a bun, and eyes that dared you to challenge her. The social worker's file described her as intelligent but confrontational. A girl who'd burned through too many foster homes. Franklin greeted Naomi with his usual warmth, extending a hand. "Welcome home, Naomi," he said. Naomi paused, her gaze sharp before muttering, "Thanks," and brushing past him into the house. Naomi wasn't one to fade into the background. She questioned Franklin's rules, skipped prayer meetings, and made no effort to hide her disdain for his sermons. The other teens adored her. Her wit was magnetic, and her boldness gave them something to admire. But to Franklin, she was a storm waiting to happen. Her defiance brought back memories of Elise and Margaret. He saw the same fire in Naomi, and it kept him awake at night. One evening, Naomi came home late. Franklin was waiting in the kitchen, his Bible open on the table, and a single lamp casting long, flickering shadows. "We have rules here, Naomi," he said, his voice calm but heavy. Naomi dropped her backpack onto a chair and crossed her arms. "What are you gonna do? Kick me out?" "Go ahead. It's not like I haven't heard it before." Franklin closed his Bible and stood, gripping the back of the chair in front of him. "I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to help you." Naomi rolled her eyes so hard, it was a wonder they didn't stick. "Save the speech, Pastor. You're not my dad, and you're definitely not my savior." With that, she turned and headed upstairs, leaving Franklin staring after her. That night, Franklin retreated to the basement, where he kept his tools and spent hours in prayer. The space smelled of sawdust and damp earth. As he knelt on the cold floor, his thoughts swirled. Naomi wasn't just another rebellious teen. She was a test, a reflection of everything he'd failed to fix before. If he couldn't save her, what did that say about him? About the choices he'd made? The next day, Franklin asked Naomi to join him in the basement after dinner. His house was quiet, save for the faint ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. "I'd like to pray with you," he said, his tone steady but insistent. Naomi raised an eyebrow, her arms crossed. "What's this about?" "Finding peace," Franklin replied. He watched as she hesitated, then shrugged and followed him downstairs. The basement was lit by a single bulb that cast harsh light over the cluttered space. Franklin gestured toward a wooden bench. Naomi sat, but kept her arms folded, her eyes scanning the room. "All right," Naomi said, her voice tinged with sarcasm. "Let's hear it." Franklin stood before her, gripping his Bible. "This isn't just about prayer," Franklin began, his voice trembling. "It's about saving your soul." Naomi narrowed her eyes. "Yeah, no, I'm out." She stood to leave, but Franklin blocked her path. "Sit down," he said, his voice low and urgent. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Naomi snapped, her voice rising. She tried to push past him, but Franklin grabbed her shoulders. At that moment, he saw Elise and Margaret, their faces blurred together with Naomi's. The anger, the defiance, the hurt. It was too much. Everything that happened next was a blur. When it was over, Naomi lay still on the cold basement floor. Franklin's hands were shaking, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. He knelt beside her, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." The next day, Franklin buried Naomi in the woods, spinning a tale about her running away. The other teens believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was their rock, their guide. Residents of Crosshaven rallied around him, offering condolences and praising his patience. It was almost enough to make him believe his own lies. That evening, Franklin sat alone in the darkened living room, the weight of his sins pressing down on him. For a moment, he thought about turning himself in. But before Franklin could act, the phone rang. "Pastor Wyatt?" the voice on the other end said. "We've got a new placement for you. A teenage girl, 15. She's had a rough go of it, but we think she'd do well in your home." Franklin closed his eyes and let out a slow breath. "Of course," he replied. "Send her over." When the girl arrived a few days later, Franklin met her at the door. She was small for her age, with wary eyes and a scowl that could cut glass. "Welcome home," he said, his voice warm and steady. She didn't respond, just brushed past him into the house as the door clicked shut. Franklin stood in the quiet hallway, his thoughts racing. Maybe this time will be different, he told himself. Maybe this time I'll get it right. The house settled into silence, but Franklin's heart was empty.